Are you kidding me? $1 million apartment just for you? No way. This place should belong to a family with children like ours. My sister Emily's voice shattered the peaceful Sunday breakfast atmosphere like breaking glass. The dream I had built with years of hard work, my sweat, my sacrifice, she demanded it as if it were her birthright. Her eyes burned with jealousy and arrogance. Our mother smiled, looking troubled but clearly unwilling to scold Emily. Casey, listen to her. Emily has a lot on her plate. Unlike you, she has a family to take care of. My father silently tilted his wineglass. His silence meant agreement. This was my family. Since we were little, Emily had always been the queen. If she cried, the world moved to comfort her. My toys, the best part of my birthday cake, everything ended up in her hands. Because you're the patient one, everyone used to tell me. Emily pressed on relentlessly. Think about it, Dad. I've got 2 kids. On my husband's income alone, a place like this is just a dream. But Casey, she's single. What does she need all this space for? Her words sliced through my years of effort and success, reducing them to nothing. I felt anger rise in my throat, hot and solid. At that moment, I made a decision. I would never speak to my family about the apartment again. I didn't need their blessing or understanding. In that family, my sense of justice had never once prevailed. So it was time to change the rules. The next day, I called my mother. Mom, I've been thinking about what happened yesterday, I said, lowering my voice deliberately, sounding defeated. Emily was right. It's too big for just me. And honestly, it's more than I can handle. I told the realtor I'll pass on it this time. On the other end, my mother sounded relieved, and I could hear Emily's disappointed voice in the background. But I'd only let them believe they'd won. The moment I hung up, I tore off my mask and instructed the real estate broker to proceed with the contract. All communications were to go through my private email. And I took great care with the mailing of documents. I lived alone, but Emily wouldn't think twice about rummaging through my mailbox. So I made sure no important bank notices went there. I even rented a new P.O. box just for that. The next 2 weeks felt like something out of a spy movie. The night my life savings were transferred into the escrow account, I stared at the confirm button on the screen, unable to press it for a while. There was no turning back. This was a sacred act, a way to cut the invisible ties that bound me to my family. And finally, the day arrived. Casey, the registration has been completed. Your keys are ready. When I unlocked the door with the brand new keys, pride and fulfillment filled my chest. A few weeks later, when everything was finally in place, I invited only my most trusted friends for a small housewarming party. Of course, I didn't tell my family. This was a celebration of a new beginning with people who truly cared about me. Lauren, my best friend, brought a bottle of champagne. The bubbles danced in the glass. I can't believe it. You really did it, Casey. Their warm words filled the room with joy. In the midst of that happiness, the doorbell suddenly rang, loud and sharp. The music stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. Were you expecting someone else? Lauren asked, tilting her head. No, I replied, a strange unease creeping into my chest as I glanced at the door monitor. On the screen was the smiling face of my sister, Emily. I felt the blood drain from my face. Why? How did she find this place? With trembling hands, I opened the door. Emily spread her arms dramatically, grinning. Surprise! I came to see your new castle. She brushed past me and stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room as if appraising it. Well, it's nicer than I thought. Good job. Looks like you did it all for me. I could feel my friends freeze at those words. How? Did you find out where I live? I managed to ask. Emily shrugged, smirking. Don't underestimate my network, Casey. I always know where you are and what you're doing. Her eyes gleamed coldly, like a snake that had just found its prey. Emily moved about the room as if she owned the place, showing not the slightest awareness that she was an uninvited guest. Her eyes swept over my friends, appraising them, before she reached for the expensive bottle of champagne Lauren had brought, and without asking, poured herself a glass. Oh, this is a good one. Thanks for bringing it. For my party. Her brazenness left everyone speechless. Lauren shot me a look that clearly said, kick her out. But if I caused a scene, that would be exactly what Emily wanted. I swallowed my anger and forced a calm expression. Emily, this is a party for my friends. You don't belong here. Oh, really? But what's yours is mine, isn't it? She smiled shamelessly and sank deep into the sofa. The cheerful atmosphere vanished instantly. My friends exchanged uneasy glances, and the lighthearted chatter that had filled the room came to a complete stop. Emily began speaking loudly, bragging about her kids, complaining about her husband's job, her voice dominating the space like a spotlight she refused to step out of. It was a performance meant to remind everyone who the real star of the room was. After about 30 minutes of holding court, she suddenly stood up. Well, I should get going. But first, mind if I use the bathroom? Without waiting for an answer, she disappeared down the hall. A few minutes later, she returned with a pleasant smile, picked up her handbag, and said, "What a lovely apartment. I'll be back soon." Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I was relieved that she was finally leaving. After she left, the cheerful atmosphere of the party never returned. My friends looked at me with concern. "Are you really okay?" At Lauren's words, I could only nod weakly. Emily's eerie smile, and those words, "What's yours is mine," echoed in my head again and again. The sense of unease lingered like the calm before a storm. Ever since Emily's unsettling visit, my mind hadn't known peace. Every time I went out, I double-checked the locks, and even inside my own apartment, I couldn't shake the suffocating feeling that someone was watching me. But as a month passed without incident, my vigilance began to fade. Maybe Emily's behavior had been nothing more than petty harassment. Just as I was beginning to believe that, an unexpected opportunity appeared, one that could change my career. I was selected as the IT support volunteer for a nonprofit providing medical aid in Central America. A 2-week assignment. It was the perfect chance to use my skills for something meaningful. And, just as importantly, an excuse to escape this stifling city and my family, even if only for a while. I accepted without hesitation. Next door lived the Smiths, a kind, older couple. We had exchanged greetings when I first moved in and occasionally chatted about the weather in the elevator. Once, when I was struggling with heavy boxes, Mrs. Smith had quickly held the door open for me, smiling. Neighbors should help each other. I was truly grateful, and that day we exchanged numbers as emergency contacts. But because of Emily, I didn't want anyone, especially family, to know I'd be away for 2 weeks. On the day of departure, I carefully checked every lock before leaving. From the backseat of the taxi to the airport, I looked up at the windows of my apartment. Just 2 weeks away. And yet, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about leaving my hard-earned sanctuary so exposed. But once I boarded the plane and fastened my seatbelt, that anxiety melted into a sense of anticipation. This was a new beginning. By the time I returned, I told myself I'd be strong enough to laugh about Emily and her nonsense. I truly believed that, completely unaware of the nightmare that was about to unfold inside my castle. The village where I was assigned felt like another world compared to the noise of Boston. During the day, I worked at local schools, setting up computers and teaching children how to use them. Even without words, their bright, curious eyes seemed to wash away everything heavy inside me. Covered in dust and sweat, I would return to the dorm exhausted but fulfilled. One night, a week into the program, after sending a quick message to Lauren to let her know I was safe, my phone began to vibrate softly. The caller ID showed Mrs. Smith. At this hour? My chest tightened with unease as I answered. "Hello, Mrs. Smith? Is something wrong?" Her voice sounded hesitant, almost apologetic. "Oh, Casey, I'm sorry to bother you so late. I wasn't sure if I might be interrupting your party." Party? I frowned. I had no idea what she was talking about. "No, I'm alone right now." "Oh, really? You don't have to hide it," she said with a lighthearted laugh. "It's been so lively over there lately. I'm glad to see you're enjoying your new place. It sounds like such fun." My heart gave a sick little jump at her words. I felt the blood drain from my body, chilling rapidly. "Mrs. Smith, what are you saying?" "Just one thing. I have a favor to ask. From tomorrow for a few days, I'll be looking after my sick niece. If it's at all possible, could you keep the music down at night? Just a bit?" I stood up, clutching the phone. My voice trembled as I forced the words out. "Mrs. Smith, please listen. I'm not in the US right now. I'm in a small village in Central America." There was a beat of silence. Then I distinctly heard her inhale on the other end. "What did you say? Then who has been throwing wild parties in your apartment every night?" Her question slammed into my eardrum from a distant country and shook my brain. My whole body trembled. I felt breathless. Someone was in my apartment partying? Impossible. I had locked every door. Who could have done this? Panic churned in my head, but one possibility rose up like something I most didn't want to see. Emily's creepy smile from that day. What's yours is mine, right? I gripped my phone with shaking fingers. Mrs. Smith, please. Are there any cars parked in front of my building? On the street? Yes, yes. The same two cars are always there. Wait, let me check. I happen to have written them down. I'll read them to you. Mrs. Smith's voice had now fully shifted into that of an ally. She read two license plate numbers. The instant I heard them, all the strength drained from my limbs. That's my parents' car and my sister's car. The words barely escaped me. My voice was raw. Oh, my goodness. Mrs. Smith was speechless. Casey, to be honest, at first we thought you were just having friends over. But they came and went every night, and it was so loud. To be frank, it felt creepy. My husband and I worried you might be in some kind of trouble. So, as a precaution, I recorded a bit of last night on video to submit to the building association if needed. I never expected it to be your family. Please, send me that video, I replied immediately. A few minutes later, the evidence of my nightmare arrived on my phone. My finger felt like lead as I tapped play. I stood motionless, speechless as the short clip played. There was no mistaking it. In my living room, curtains wide open, were my parents, my sister Emily and her husband, and around them a group of men and women who appeared to be their friends, 8 people in total, having a party. They laughed with champagne flutes in hand, behaving as if they were relaxing in their own vacation home. My father was stretched out on my sofa with his shoes on. My mother was cooking something in my kitchen, and Emily laughed like a queen at the center of it all. Anger overtook my sorrow. This was theft, the most despicable betrayal against my dream, my hard work, my life itself. When the video ended, my hands shook with fury. From a foreign land, all I could do was watch my sanctuary being trampled in dirty shoes. But the helplessness vanished in an instant, replaced by a blazing, consuming rage. I didn't shed a single tear. This wasn't the time for crying. This was war. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and called Mrs. Smith back. Mrs. Smith, thank you so much. Because of you, I know everything. One more favor. If they come again tomorrow, could you message me the moment they arrive? My voice was remarkably steady, even to my own surprise. The shape of a plan for revenge was forming quickly in my mind. Of course, Casey. I'll help however I can. I felt a deep sense of gratitude in my heart at her resolute reply. Next, I called my best friend Lauren. Even at that late hour, she answered immediately. As I explained the situation in a trembling voice, I heard her go silent on the other end. That's impossible. No human being should do something like that. Her anger burned with the same heat I felt. Casey, what do you want to do? Tell me whatever I can do. Should I go over to your parents' place right now and confront them? No, that won't be necessary. I shook my head. I'll make them understand by something much more effective. At that moment, 2 questions crossed my mind. How had Emily gotten a spare key? And how had she known that I would be away for 2 whole weeks at exactly this time? As I followed the threads of memory, I could almost hear the puzzle pieces click into place, one by one. First, how had Emily found out my address? Of course. It was a few weeks before my departure at the NPO office. I'd been excitedly telling a close coworker I finally bought my own apartment, the one on the corner by the bakery. A little distance away, Allison had been listening. Yes, Allison, who had been one of Emily's college friends. But after Emily got married, she'd cut off contact, saying, single women are boring. Still, that was the only possible link. And then, the spare key. That day of the housewarming party. When Emily said, mind if I use the bathroom, and disappeared for a few minutes, my keys had been lying casually on the entryway table. There was no doubt. I hadn't checked before leaving for the volunteer trip, but the spare key that had been hanging on the hook by the door must have been stolen. I'd completely overlooked it. Finally, the perfect timing of my 2-week absence. That too. Allison, who was part of the same volunteer group, must have told Emily. Emily's triumphant face flashed through my mind. Don't underestimate my network. It was a betrayal planned with family, executed through a so-called friend. As every piece fell into place and the full picture of the betrayal came into focus, my anger reached its boiling point. But it wasn't a hot rage. It was cold, freezing everything it touched. If I confronted Allison in anger, she'd only lie to protect herself. Fine then. I'd use those lies instead. I took one deep breath, composed myself, and put on a trembling, frightened expression, the look of a helpless younger sister seeking comfort. Then I went to find Allison while she was alone. Allison, something terrible's happened. Please help me. Even I was impressed at how frail and shaky my voice sounded. She turned to me, startled. What's wrong, Casey? You look pale. I just got a call from my neighbor. She said someone's been throwing parties in my apartment every night while I'm gone. That can't be true, right? I looked straight into her eyes. For an instant, just one brief flicker, her gaze wavered before she masked it with a concerned expression. What? That's impossible. There must be some mistake. Her performance was flawless. I applauded her silently in my head. But just if, someone has broken in, what should I do? Oh, I know. I'll call Emily and ask her to check the place for me. You're still in touch with her, right? I'm sure she'd help. That was my trap. If Allison truly knew nothing, she'd answer immediately, yes, that's a good idea. But her reaction was different. Allison was clearly flustered and hastily tried to restrain me. Wait, Casey, I'm sure it's fine. Emily's probably busy with her kids. You don't want to bother her over something like this, do you? Let's just wait a little longer. Those words were the final piece of evidence. She knew Emily was in my apartment, and she was desperate to stop me from calling her. You're right. Maybe I'm overreacting. It's better not to make a fuss. I smiled weakly. Thank you. I'm glad I talked to you. The moment I turned the corner, away from her sight, my face went blank. She dug her own grave with her words. No more hesitation, no more mercy. I would not hold back. From the next day onward, I couldn't focus on my volunteer work at all. The children's laughter, the chatter of my colleagues, all of it felt distant, as though I were trapped behind a wall of glass. My thoughts were thousands of miles away, fixed on that apartment in Boston. I couldn't put down my phone, compulsively checking the battery, the signal, the time. My coworkers began to exchange uneasy glances, especially Allison. She seemed to want to speak to me, but the cold aura radiating from me must have stopped her. She backed off quickly. She'd pay for her part in this. Then, one evening, local time, early afternoon in Boston, my phone buzzed softly in my pocket. A message from Mrs. Smith. Just a few words. They're here. My heart thudded violently in my chest. They were back. Those shameless intruders had returned once again to feast inside my castle. I quietly stepped away from the others and, behind the building, dialed the number with trembling fingers. The emergency number of the United States, 911. After a few rings, a calm female operator answered. This is an emergency. I'd like to report a break-in. I spoke as evenly as I could, just as I had practiced. It's my apartment in Boston. Right now there are intruders throwing a party inside. Are you safe, ma'am? Are you inside the apartment right now? No, I replied. I'm out of the country, which is exactly why I can tell you, without a doubt, that they're trespassing. There was a brief pause, a faint tension in the operator's voice. Understood. We'll need to verify your identity and have someone on site to meet the officers. Can you assist with that? Yes, of course. I answered immediately, then began reciting every piece of information I had prepared in advance, smoothly and without hesitation. First, you can contact Mrs. Smith, my neighbor, as the on-site witness when the officers arrive. She knows the situation and is willing to cooperate. As proof of ownership, I'll give you my apartment's contract number, the name and contact of the management company, and the customer number for my latest utility bill. My voice remained astonishingly calm, even to myself. I provided every detail she asked for, and I could hear her rapidly typing the information into the system. Thank you, Casey. Your identity has been verified. We'll reach out to Mrs. Smith as well. Now, can you tell me more about the situation? How many intruders are there? Any sign they might be armed? According to Mrs. Smith's footage, there are at least 8 people. I can't confirm if they're armed, but they're in my home without permission, using my property as if it were their own. Anger crept into my voice despite my effort to suppress it. Understood. We're dispatching officers to the scene immediately. When the call ended, I placed a hand on the wall and exhaled deeply. The die had been cast. Time moved unbearably slow after the report. I sat in the hard chair at the volunteer center, staring blankly at my phone screen. What was happening in that Boston apartment? Could they hear the sirens yet? What kind of expressions would they make when the door was kicked open? The thought of it tightened my chest. Half anticipation, half dread. After what felt like 15 minutes, my phone began to vibrate repeatedly, flooding with notifications. Every message was from Mrs. Smith. The police are here. There are a lot of them. They're pounding on your door. I can hear shouting from inside. They're taking them out now. Then came another message, short with a single video attached. I filmed it from my window. Holding my breath, I pressed play. The footage, taken from a slightly elevated angle through Mrs. Smith's window, was shaky but clear enough. There was almost no sound, but the tension of the moment bled through the screen. The familiar front entrance of my apartment building glowed under the red and blue lights of several police cruisers, flashing steadily, almost ominously. The door opened, and one by one, the police led my family outside. My father's face was ashen. My mother was sobbing, covering her face with a handkerchief. And Emily, she looked stunned, staring blankly into space as if her world had collapsed. Beside her, my brother-in-law seemed to be struggling against the officers. The video ended. A new message followed right after. It was awful. Your brother-in-law was completely drunk. He shouted obscene things at a female officer and tried to touch her. They pinned him to the ground right there in the hallway. That single line captured the full ugliness of the scene. I kept watching, expressionless, until the screen went dark. Even then, I felt no joy, no satisfaction, only a strange, hollow stillness. Seeing them in handcuffs felt less like vengeance and more like witnessing the end of an era. A necessary ritual to close a chapter that had already rotted long ago. They had trampled my dream, my life, my hard-earned sanctuary. And so they were simply facing the consequences. That was all. For the rest of the volunteer program, I spoke only with my lawyer, calmly arranging the legal procedures. I ignored every attempt at contact from my family. I later learned they had posted bail and been released, but they had forfeited any right to reach me ever again. When the 2-week program ended and I finally landed back in Boston, the air felt a little lighter. I took a taxi straight to my fortress. Just to be safe, I had already arranged to have all the locks changed while I was abroad. And when I opened the door, the sight before me was exactly what I expected. Half-empty bottles, scattered snacks, countless footprints staining the floor. After the police investigation, they must have decided there was no obligation to clean up the scene. It was the evidence of how deeply they had defiled my sanctuary. Yet, strangely, I felt no anger. Silently, I opened every window, slipped on a pair of rubber gloves, and picked up a trash bag. One by one, I discarded the traces they had left behind. It felt less like cleaning and more like a purification ritual, washing away the filth that had clung to my life. I stripped the stained sofa covers, scrubbed the floor, and let the fresh air flow through. 2 hours later, the room had regained its stillness and purity. The following weeks were spent preparing for trial. According to my lawyer, every member of my family had been formally charged with trespassing, and my brother-in-law faced additional charges of obstruction and attempted sexual assault. He was fired from his company without severance. Their social reputations had collapsed entirely. Even upon hearing that, my heart remained calm. Then, one evening, I finally received a call from my mother. I knew it would be the last time we ever spoke. I pressed the call button. "Casey, please withdraw the charges." Her voice wasn't apologetic. It was desperate. "Because of you, your brother-in-law got fired. Our lives are ruined. You're part of this family. How can you just stand by and watch? You owe it to us to help." Listening to her voice cracked with panic yet dripping with self-pity. I felt nothing but an eerie stillness. In the past, hearing that voice might have filled me with guilt and made me blame myself. But not anymore. Tu spoke quietly, yet with unwavering clarity. "Family, you dare to use that word? A real family doesn't trample on my dreams. A real family doesn't turn my home into their playground while I'm away. You're not family, you're thieves. On the other end, I heard her gasp. How can you say that? I raised you. I am grateful you raised me, but that doesn't give you the right to exploit me. I looked out the window. Not a single tear came. I worked for this. Every inch of it. I bled for it. I never took anything from you, yet you tried to take everything from me. I took a breath and spoke the final words that would close this story. Let me tell you something, Mom. $1 million. That's what it cost. Not just to buy this apartment, but to buy my freedom from all of you. And with that, I ended the call. I never answered their number again. As a result of the trial, they were all found guilty and sentenced with probation, along with hefty fines. I have no knowledge and no desire to know what became of them after losing their social credibility. I did not overlook Allison's betrayal either. I compiled all the evidence regarding Emily, our relationship, the timing of how she gained access to my information, and formally reported everything to the headquarters of the NGO. An organization built on trust could never allow such malicious behavior to go unpunished. She was immediately dismissed from the program and permanently banned from any future projects. Justice isn't only what's won in court. It's the act of cutting away every toxic tie that's poisoned your life. Calmly, completely, and without regret. Now, I sit in this apartment gazing at the quiet city lights. There are things I have lost. The illusion of a family bound by blood. But what I have gained is far greater than that. Peace that no one can threaten. The pride of standing on my own 2 feet. And true, unshakable freedom. My story may have begun with a single betrayal, but from now on, I will build a new story, powered entirely by my own strength.